Could aliens be out there? Ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated by this. From E.T. to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And now Steven Spielberg has even directed an expected blockbuster movie coming out in June called Disclosure Day. You're wondering why we're breaking in to talk to you about this on the stream. Could that be happening already? A lot of developments just in the last 10 days. And tonight in a Truth Social post, President Donald Trump now says he will direct the federal government to release any and all government files related to, quote, alien and extraterrestrial life and UFOs.
Classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Cause Before Symptom and a joint episode of Urban Odyssey. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Let's see it. It is the 17th of August. How's it going, Argertis? I see your message in Rumble. Don't see it on my end of the chat. Let me refresh everything, make sure everything is working. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I hope everybody's doing well. James will be back tomorrow. And what I have here up on the screen, I hope everybody enjoyed the little intro segment that we did there. I saw this last night and really clicked into perspective a few different things. Apparently, there's a big rumor going on now that Dick Cheney was the head of the alien detention program. But if anybody has read into MK Monarch, you know that he was actually the head of the MK Monarch program. So he was definitely detaining Monarch trauma controlled, pretty much slaves that they're keeping against their will, you know, like Epstein. So that's what he was the head of. And it's just interesting that they're rebranding this as, no, it wasn't Monarch. It was actually the alien detention program. So keep that in mind that perhaps now we're rebranding to aliens. It's not survivors of MK Ultra or Monarch or freedom trained slaves or whatever they call them in the program. It's not that anymore. No, now it's aliens. Now they're aliens. Because if they see themselves as aliens, for instance, if the people, the Epstein class, people like Epstein and the like, they want you to see them as reptiles, as aliens. That's what they want you to see. That's how they want to be viewed. So that means that we're alien to them on the same logic as they're alien to us. Because in the way that human beings have empathy and care if other humans are in danger or in stress or having a period of, I guess, adrenaline. Certain people are sensitive to that. We call that being empathetic or empaths. But not having that, a sociopath, pushed to the extreme, doing the things that they're talking about in the Epstein releases, the stuff that the government has actually released. Not all of it, because some of it's definitely missing. But what they have released is pretty damning, pretty disgusting. Let me see if I can get the chat up and running. I think everything's working, but I'm not sure. Refresh on both ends. Okay, so tonight we're going to continue on where we were ended off last night. We're going to talk about prediction markets and how that relates to market manipulation, market gain. But we're going to tie that back into 6G. We're going to tie that into the stuff that we've been talking about for a while. The last couple of videos I did before last night. I was supposed to host Friday, but then we had technical difficulties, so that didn't really work out well. And I didn't stream Friday night, but then Saturday, last night, we watched the Reckless Spend video. And I said, whenever you see these controversies pop up almost out of nowhere and almost with perfect execution, things just go so well. Always keep it in the back of your mind that that can be exploited specifically to financial means. But there was something else I wanted to show you guys, an actual alien interview. Maybe you guys will see it that way. But this is actually, let's see. I don't know why it defaults to that tab. Let's see. Here we go. Let me give a shout out to Mr. Michael King on X, because he tracked down and took the liberty of doing an English translation. It turns out, guys, that our friendly neighborhood Pepe Orsini was on a news interview recently. And so he brought that to my attention today. I just saw this today. Let's see. Let's read one of the original posts. Here we go. Lavinia Orefici's recent interview with Domenico Napoleon Orsini about the British royal family and international politics is what I get from not. So the interview was in Italian originally. Let's see if we can play a little bit.
Sono Domenico Napoleone Orsini, Sua Altezza Serenissima, Don Domenico Napoleone, Principe Orsini, 23esimo Duca di Gravina, Principe di Solofra e Principe di Amatrice.
He basically said that he's the Duke of Gravina. That's all I could decipher. He said he's the Duke of Gravina. And I noticed that if you search for the Duke of Gravina, you'll find information about who was in the past. But you have to mention him by name. You have to type his name in addition to Duke of Gravina, and then it will tell you he is the Duke of Gravina. It is an unofficial position because the Italian government doesn't recognize those titles anymore, but the families recognize those titles still. So it's interesting. Let's see. Let's read some of the translations. Let me fix the screen. He says, I am Domenico Orsini, and His Most Serene Highness Don Domenico Napoleon Orsini, the 23rd Duke of Gravina, Prince of Solofra, and Prince of Amatrice. Sorry, my throat's dry. I always get that whenever I try to do a stream. Anytime I talk to people or have a conversation with one of my friends or in real life or something with family or something like that, doesn't really happen. Only when I'm streaming do I get the dry throat. So he's the 23rd Duke of Gravina, the Prince of Solofra, and Prince of Amatrice. It says, I am a direct descendant of Lorenzo the Magnificent. since he married Clarice Orsini. Thus, our family also went to France. Clarice Orsini was the great-grandmother of about 3 kings of France. Then there's Spain. We have 3 popes from there. My family has never been monarchist. We support the Pope as king. And they go on to talk about anti-monarchist sentiment. So I guess this interview was conducted when Queen Elizabeth was still alive, so a couple of years back. And how has the British monarchy managed to survive and remain so strong? The interviewer asks. He's able to make some pretty bold decisions, such as taking to the streets alongside the British. Let's go to the second. And then they go on to talk about Knights of the Garter, making some pretty bold decisions. That's where we left off. Alongside the Windsors, Domenico Orsini is a member of one of the world's oldest orders of knighthood, dating back to the Middle Ages, the Order of the Garter. This is the interviewer says that. And then Orsini responds, he says, the Order of the Hierarchy, I don't know what it is. I was fascinated by the Garter, and I met Margaret in person at a dinner at the French embassy. Carlo and I met in Palm Beach. Oh, wow. Isn't that strange, guys? They met at Palm Beach. Wow. Let's see. Let me make sure everything's good over here. For some reason, I don't know if my chat's working or not. If somebody would be so kind as to just send a message if you're able to, I'd like to just see if the chat is working. I'm not sure. Let's see. They're talking about the Order of the Hierarchy. Orsini says. I don't know if he's correcting her or if he's saying that is the name of the group. I don't know what it is. He says, I was fascinated by the Garter, and I met Margaret in person at a dinner in Palm Beach at a polo tournament. It was funny, though I'm not sure if I remember it correctly. He fell off his horse, and everybody wondered what on earth had happened. The only thing that happened was that we'd stayed up very late the night before, wonder what he was doing, so he hadn't time to rest. Will the prince, or the British monarchy, probably referring to Charles, be able to survive Queen Elizabeth after she's gone? I don't know. They have to be strong, he says, because England would lose a great deal. I see our Gertison right there. Let's see. It's strange. I see your message, but for some reason it's not popping up over on this end. Gotta love it, but at least if I can see it, I'm happy. Okay, so yeah, I thought that was interesting. I just thought that was random that popped up on my timeline. I thought you guys would be interested to hear that. So who knows? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but apparently he is out there. Okay, let's go over to our slides and get into that, because we're going to talk about quite a few different things tonight. There we go. I see the message now. Okay, let's see. Cool. There we go. I see that. I see you. Let me make myself small, and we will get on with it. Ooh. Geopolitical prediction markets, 6G cognitive twins, and econophysics, presented by yours truly for the show that would air if you were James hosting the show on the West Coast. It would have been the show for August 16th. But we're filling in for James tonight, so he'll be back tomorrow. He's at the gold mines. Man, I'm telling you, I really think James should consider doing some bits of footage from his gold mining trips, but maybe you guys could tell him you're interested in that, and maybe he could bring us back. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just like a little 30-minute highlight of whatever he does out there. I think that would go viral, honestly. It's exactly what people are looking for right now. Boot says he only sees him in the Rumble chat. I think our Gertison might be on my Rumble. I'm not sure, because I did see it pop up. There's so many like wires that cross, because I stream to a bunch of different destinations, including James's channel, but then I do all mine at the same time. And I use Rumble Studio. I connect OBS to Rumble Studio, just free, and I do all the different destinations from there. So if I'm streaming from my account and somebody leaves a message or chats on the video on my profile, it'll show up in the dashboard. It's just so many. It's one little piece over here, one little piece over there. It's almost like they wouldn't make as much money, but as much time, people wouldn't have things to do if they didn't do it that way. They have to break it up a little bit. Okay. So first, what we're going to start off with, and there was actually something else that I should have showed you. Let me see if I can go to that real quick. Okay, so first, the policy analysis market and the FutureMap archive. How's it going, KCD on X? Nice to see you tonight. Glad to have you here with us. Glad to see that we can see messages from X as well. I know that we get a few messages on X here and there, but very rarely do we get people on X that are watching the stream. They usually watch it after the fact. So let's see, the policy analysis market and FutureMap. Now this, let's see, in 2000, somebody by the name of Michael Forrester, who ran and still runs the National Science Foundation, which I highlighted, quantum computing research program. So he runs the National Science Foundation Quantum Computing Research Program. He convinced DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the Blue Sky Research Arm, I don't know what Blue Sky means, of the U.S. Defense Department to fund research on prediction markets starting in 2001, the same year that the Smart Dust project was completed. Prediction markets are speculative markets created for the purpose of aggregating information on topics of interest. Previous field studies had found that such markets outpredict coexisting institutions regarding the weather, printer sales, movie sales, elections, and much more. Again, this guy, Michael Foster, runs the Quantum Computing Research Program at the National Science Foundation, convinced DARPA to fund this research starting in 2001. Prediction markets are speculative market simulations and programs for information on topics, and they consistently outpredict coexisting institutions on weather, printer sales, and everything pretty much. DARPA's PAM, which means Policy Analysis Market, PAM prediction market shut down after 72 hours. Yeah, people didn't like the idea, obviously. So, it means that they're just going to have somebody else do it. And that's exactly what they did. Let's see. The inventor of Polymarket, Shane Copland, got his inspiration from Professor Robert Hansen, who was the one to write a paper about DARPA's PAM program, which is basically Polymarket. Right here, that was somebody posted this to X, Marissa Hansen, June 29th, 2026. New York City native who dropped out of New York University, Copland developed Polymarket at age 21 amid COVID-19 pandemic. drawing on early experiences in cryptocurrency, including participation in Ethereum's initial offerings. The platform built on the Polygon network with smart contract settlements. Basically, it's a contract that executes on binary logic. So basically, it's a middleman, but the middleman is a robot. We covered those when we talked about tokenized consciousness and iNFTs, which are real. Honestly, probably iNFTs are more important than NFTs, and probably the only reason NFTs were a thing was to get these made. That's my guess, because they have something called a Noah's Ark metaverse for these iNFTs, and they have 3 components: a body, a soul, and a mind, and that's their terminology. So it's very strange. And then you see all of this stuff. And we're going to cover something else too from Whitney Webb. She says, we've been quiet recently because Mark Goodwin and I have been working to write the most comprehensive investigation into Polymarket's origins and ambitions to date. And I haven't read the whole thing or seen that yet, so I thought I'd include that. So anybody who's interested in that should go and check that out. I'll update the links and put them in the posts and stuff later after the video goes out. And I thought I wanted to mention this because I found this just fascinating. It's completely random. I looked up Arthur C. Clarke. He was the person who the quote was attributed to, that any sufficiently advanced technology is magic to people who don't understand it. I'm paraphrasing that, but he was the one who said that. That was attributed to Arthur C. Clarke. He wrote a book, Childhood's End, in 1953. Science fiction, they say. It says the story follows a peaceful alien invasion of Earth by mysterious overlords whose arrival begins decades of apparent utopia under indirect alien rule at the cost of human identity and culture. Clarke's idea for the book began with his short story, Guardian Angel, just published in New Worlds in 1950. Which he expanded into a novel in 1952, incorporating it as the first part of the book, Earth and the Overlords, completed and published in 1953. Childhood's End sold out its first printing. I actually am going to bring up the page for this because there's much more to it. It gets even more interesting. So, let's see. In the late 20th century, that is when the United States and the Soviet Union are competing to launch a spacecraft into orbit. That's kind of where it diverges from our storyline. After 1 week, the aliens announce that they're assuming supervision of international affairs to prevent humanity's extinction. They became known as the Overlords. In general, they let humans go on conducting their affairs in their own way, although some humans are suspicious of the Overlord's benign intent, as they never allow themselves to be seen. So the character in this book, Childhood's End, Overlord Karelin, the supervisor of the Earth, periodically meets with Riki Stormgren, the Secretary General of the United Nations. Karelin tells Stormgren that the Overlords will reveal themselves in 50 years. So the book 1953, it would have been about 2003. So 2001, 2003, 9/11. When the Overlords finally reveal their appearance, they resemble the traditional Christian folk images of demons with cloven hooves, leathery wings, horns, and barbed tails. And this is where it gets interesting. Humankind enters a golden age of prosperity. Shit you not, guys. I saw this yesterday, and it's just one of those things that's so crazy. I had to show it. I had to show it to you guys. Even the golden age. When I saw that it said the golden age of prosperity, this is another sci-fi book. This is by Arthur C. Clarke, Arthur C. Clarke was the one who said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. They attribute the quote to him. Other people have said it, but It was written by that guy. The book's Childhood's End. Yeah, and the plot is secret hidden alien overlords reveal themselves in 50 years. They're actually demons. Humankind enters a golden age of prosperity. The overlords are interested in psychic research. Okay, well over a century after the overlord's arrival, human children, beginning with the characters, the Gregsons, begin to display clairvoyance and telekinetic powers. Corellin reveals the Overlord's purpose. They serve the Overmind, a vast cosmic intelligence, as a kind of bridge species, fostering other races' eventual union with it. So it's like hindsight is 2020, but it's not even, it's like something more than 2020 at this point. It's eerie. It's so weird. It's like, wow. Especially the Donald Trump stuff, like all of the King of the Jews book, where it was written by Leslie Epstein. Like that, it's just crazy times. Okay, back to the subject. Okay, we're going to go through some slides that talk about the cognitive grid, 6G sensing, and the prediction of everything. Passive global telecom channels are evolving into an active, predictive nervous system, fusing 6G sensing, wireless power, and DARPA-grade algorithms. Creates a new planetary architecture. So if you haven't hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate if you did that if you liked the video, and it reminded me to do that. So Boots is usually the person who does it, and I know that my chat was messed up. He might have done it. So if Boots, if you did it today, I'm pretty sure you did, but if you didn't, it's okay. I remember to do it. Okay. I did read the whole 6G white paper, so if anybody was interested in that, it's over 11 episodes, because there's 11 sections in it. Read through the whole thing from front to back, and it's very boring, but it's revealing, very revealing. Okay, predictive colonization, the origins of. The lineage of the modern digital panopticon traces directly back to May 2001, when Michael Foster, who we previously mentioned, of the National Science Foundation, convinced DARPA to fund research into speculative prediction markets under the Future Markets Applied to Prediction FutureMap program. Placed within the Information Awareness Office, IAO, under John Poindexter, this initiative birthed the Policy Analysis Market, PAM, which became Polymarket, designed to compile dispersed qualitative geopolitical risk signals into actionable quantitative probabilities via event contracts, smart contracts. Arguably, social media may have had a big role to play. Although public uproar over terrorism futures, that's why they scrapped the project, forced the official closure of PAM in August 2003. The research did not cease, obviously not, never does. It was merely rebranded and militarized under the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Activity Portfolio, IARPA, and later into Polymarket and similar products. This is from a book by Jacques Ellul called Agitation Propaganda, Agitprop. So what is that? Agitprop, the deployment of violent, elemental emotional shocks designed to tear the individual from their daily routine and hurl them into a frenzied, destructive mass action. Weaponized rabies. Humans are reduced to ravenous attack dogs. The state or revolutionary force manufactures a crisis, points to a scapegoat, and unleashes the mob using raw hatred to bypass all rational restraint. So you just have a bit of a timeline here, 2001 to 2003. the DARPA and future projects, FutureMap, prediction markets for defense, 2010 to 2017. You have the IARPA portfolio, aggregative contingent estimation, crowdsourced super forecasting ensembles. We talked about that, mentioned that yesterday. Create program, qualitative, argument optimization and focus, 2019 to 2020. Evaluating counterfactuals, which is interesting because that pops up in the video that I did maybe a week ago at this point, on cognitive twins, 6G, MatrAIx or MatrAIx, and the LE World Model Simulation project from MIT and Harvard. I did that video last week. And then this idea of counterfactual what ifs was very prevalent in what they were simulating inside of pretty much a world that's got 8 billion simulated unique people in it, avatars. Okay, from communication to total perception. What happens when the network physically senses and predicts our environment? Well, we're living through it right now. 6G targeting, peak data rates exceeding 1 terabit per second, and spectral efficiency surpassing 10 bits per second per hertz. Paradigm shifts, network as a sensor, NAAS. Its network as a sensor. Maps the physical world via radio frequency reflections. This is probably a big thing that the flock cameras and the similar companies, not just flock, but depends on the technology. Now, this technology may be equipped, it may not be with certain makes and models, but they want this to be everywhere. So if it's not there, they want it there. They want to be able to map out the environment and see through walls. You know how they talk about your Wi-Fi router can help them see through walls? It is something like that. By we are witnessing the birth of a spatial awareness platform that sees without cameras. That's true. That's even in the 6G white paper. Let's see. That I love to show people this graphic because it's just so shocking. Let's see. I'll bring it up here. And again, this is actually in the white paper. If you read the 6G white paper, you go and pull it up, you'll find in section 11, I think. This is an actual diagram in the 6G white paper. They include this in the official 6G and beyond, the future of wireless communication systems, the white paper from 2020. This is figure 14. It says application scenarios of molecular communications in the Internet of Nano Things and the Internet of Bio-Nano Things. So there's nano cameras on the wall. Okay. They got little dots on his arm and his head, and it's saying that the internet gateway is actually communicating inside of his body. That's in the 6G white paper. Okay, this is official figure. Okay. So by leveraging mobile network infrastructure, ISAC, which is integrated sensing and communication, can detect, locate, and track objects. Let's see, that's why they banned lead-based paint, not because it's harmful, but because it blocks RFI waves. That's probably very true. It would have been a big problem no matter what. You know, if we were still using it today, and there is some aircraft stuff that does require it or need it, so that may become a problem, and they're probably going to try to phase that out if they haven't already. Maybe that's another reason that this was set up to be an oil crisis. That's one of the playbooks that they wanted to use. ISAC, the physics of omnipresent sensing. So and the Cognitive Twins paper. So Cognitive Twins has the subtitle, basically, we're upgrading digital twins. We're going to have a cognitive twin, which can run counterfactual simulations. It can do, basically, it can take the telemetry data from an individual and it can run a simulation. It can be run kind of in this virtual world. It's called the MatrAIx, M-A TRAIX, and the AI is like, AI, artificial intelligence. So it's hard to say, but the name of the program is MatrAIx in an LE world model. Using the data, they can simulate what would you do, what if, a counterfactual. They can simulate it based on the data they have. And they can see what you would respond, how would you respond to this action? Okay, if you were going to respond to the action that way, what if this happened? They can do that now with a simulation. Let's see. Zero says, sounds like this all of this technology could be done using a microphone or to detect or sense objects like a heart rate, any object that has sound. That's true. It absolutely can. But at the same time, all of the stuff that's being sprayed constantly, and the reason that they have to keep spraying it has a dual purpose. They want to have a layer of what's called MEMS, micro-electromechanical systems, or NEMS, nano-electromechanical systems, graphene, polymers, and plastics, smart polymers. If they get a layer of this stuff in between us and the sun, it's fully programmable. The 6G paper calls it a programmable wireless environment. And then we'll look up the AdvisorSurf project just so I can show you what this is. AdvisorSurf.eu project. This is a hypersurface right here. This is in the nanoscale range. These are very small devices, but they allow, let's see, they say it in here somewhere. Here it is. Unnatural functionality says optical components with engineered and even unnatural functionalities. These are on the nanoscale. Okay, there's different ways to make them: graphene, plastics, polymers, micropolymers, microplastics. Okay, so they keep this in between us and the sun. Anything that comes from the sun hits this, it can be fully programmed. They can do anything they want with it. It could be that program optimized to any goal, coded on any surface. They can do optics, they can do lenses, they can do stuff like that. It can be kept in the air, up in the sky for a period of time, but it will come back down. So they have to put more up there, one. But when it does come down, it gets into everything and everyone, animals, trees, everything gets into everything. And then once it's in everything, there will be no more latency. There'll be no, you won't have to send the data from point A to point B because it's all in the same network, basically. These are hypersurfaces, metasurfaces, meta-atoms. There's a bunch of different terms for them, but yes. So you can do it with microphones. You can do it with Wi-Fi routers. You can do it with thermostats. You can do it with any smart device. SMART has, it's an acronym, but the one that I remember best is surveillance monitoring and reporting technology is SMART. So anything that's a smart device, surveillance. And then if they can't get you with that, if you don't have one of those, they need to get those types of people into the program, into the system. Now, the Cognitive Twins paper says 4.6G, pretty much says that now they have reliable way to do that. And that's what we're back to where we're at. That's what ISAC is, integrated sensing and communication. So the reason that when I started looking into this, the first thing that I needed to establish, is there indication in the cognitive twins paper that they have to get this into everything or the project doesn't work? It's like, can we have cognitive twins if we don't have access to data on everybody? No, they can't. And that's what ISAC is here. It collapses the boundary between data transmission and radar. It operates on pulse Doppler principles to measure range, velocity, and angle within the OFDM resource grid. Accuracy scales dramatically with wider terahertz. It's important, terahertz range, bandwidths. It lets them do all that unnatural stuff. And it's codified globally in the upcoming 3GPP Release 21. Okay, universal infiltration of the host and the edge environment. Remember the diagram that we just looked at? Let me see if I can go back to it. This diagram here, this is the edge environment. This would be the edge environment. Universal infiltration of the host and the edge environment. Mainstream engineering literature portrays integrated sensing and communication as a highly optimized protocol where a single wireless signal simultaneously transmits data and acts as a radar. It's another indicator that something malicious is going on here, is that it's dual directions, bi-directional. It has read and write. So if this was just for, making sure people are good with their pacemaker, you wouldn't need to do a whole lot of writing the data. Oh, and we also have energy harvesting. I didn't mention that. But they can power these devices with something called a mosquito bite. So it does this right on the precipice where your body doesn't pick it up. Okay. The reality is far more invasive. For the control grid to function, it must eliminate all unmonitored space, transforming the ambient environment and the human body into a unified, coherent transceiver substrate. It's called mesh. To achieve the perceptual operation demanded by the global panopticon, the system utilizes a dual infiltration vector, environmental and biological. So, on the top here first, environmental. Something like metasurfaces. I just showed you the visor surf, CMOS, which is a way they manufacture these. 6G in the future, 7G, cell-free massive MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, and orbital Starlink satellite grids, biological, intrabody area networks, HBC or MiCs, syringe injectable mesh electronics, self-assembling graphene lattices, and inhaled ingested smart dust. So the second that any of this gets into the body, it becomes a wearable medical device. So when they talk about and when they say, hey, all these people that they just appointed to be in the health department own wearable medical companies, they own all these companies. That's what they're talking about. Wearable medical technology. The second that you breathe in smart dust, it's a wearable medical device. Biological internal anchor. The human body systematically converted into a localized antenna through the daily non-consensual dissemination of smart dust, self-assembling nanoparticles and magnetoelectronic oxides via, they don't call them chemtrails, they call it stratospheric aerosol injections. Once inhaled, these nanoparticles cross the blood-brain barrier, settle in the lungs and the bloodstream. Also, remember how they said that we all have microplastics, and it's obviously our fault because of climate change or whatever? No, that's a lie, actually. They make these with polymers and plastics. So I don't buy that the microplastics just from environmental stuff. So we do know that we all have microplastics in us, and these tend to grow into artificial nervous system blood clots under the standards like the IEEE 802.15.6, the Human Body Communication Standard. That targets skin and blood vessels are transformed into active waveguides, is what they call it, an active waveguide, assigning every biological host a unique MAC address and making their physiology permanently radio transceivable or traceable. Environmental saturation, external cage for targets who attempt to resist internal colonization. The system turns the physical world itself into active sensors, like the diagram that we looked at, using reconfigurable intelligence surface. They mentioned this in the 6G paper. I think it's part 4 of my series, section 4. Actually, I can see if there's any diagrams there. Yeah, here it is. I guess I don't have the diagrams for that section, at least. It was just section 4. Okay, we'll go back over here. Yeah, so they're called reconfigurable intelligence surfaces, aka hypersurfaces, the visor surf project that we just looked at a minute ago. The walls, ceilings, and streetlights are painted with active software-defined metasurfaces from the directory of human husbandry. My project, over 700 different entries. Everything that I come across, all these different words and terms, they get put into the directory of human husbandry. And everybody can access that, use that. And you can bookmark the link. It's already in the description. So if you're watching the video on Rumble, YouTube, any of those locations, it's already in the description. It says the dictionary or the directory. You can bookmark that link. It'll always be up to date. You can search on it. Has a search bar, mobile friendly, and I update it. It'll always be up to date. The air is ionized with conductive barium, strontium, titanite particulates. This enables the variable terrain radio parabolic equation, VTRPE system, to project 3D radar images through solid walls, rendering physical sanctuary completely obsolete. Energy substrate, self-adaptive wireless power. Ubiquitous 6G sensors render wired connections and conventional wireless tuning functionality obsolete. A revolutionary paradigm creates a virtual, nearly ideal, oscillating voltage source at the load site. So this is where it gets interesting. When you read through this, it sounds a whole lot like they're creating a 0-point energy loop, a feedback loop. So basically, what is a 0-point energy? Fundamentally, it is a perfect reaction that can feed into itself in a loop, a perfect loop. There's nothing that goes to waste, and so the power just kind of compounds in on itself. It's a very rudimentary definition, but so they say a revolutionary paradigm creates a virtual, nearly ideal oscillating voltage source at the load site. The wireless link and the load become part of the feedback loop, generating microwave power directly at the load site. It enables automatic receiver detection and robust operation. Efficiency, regardless of misalignment. Okay, so now we're going to get into the prediction part. So how do algorithms factor into prediction? How will the sensing grid process reality? The mathematical blueprint was drawn by U.S. intelligence, which we covered. 2001, FutureMap, policy analysis market. to aggregate geopolitical risk signals into quantitative probabilities. 2010, the IARPA, it's a portfolio, I guess, of investment, launches the ACE, aggregative contingent estimation, birthing the commercial super forecasting industry. The result, crowdsourced performance-weighted ensembles consistently outpredict traditional intelligence gathering. So these are videos that I did the last time that Connor was out of town. We did 3-part series on telemetry, precision measurements, remote brain telemetry, and then cognitive twins. This is the first episode on cognitive twins. Cognitive evolution, HFC, and counterfactuals. Human intuition alone cannot manage the speed of the cognitive grid. The system requires hybrid intelligence. This is going to be probably the most important part of the whole episode tonight. This is where it gets very interesting. IARPA's HFC, the hybrid forecasting competition, successfully integrated human cognitive capabilities with machine-driven deep learning models. IARPA's focus program mastered counterfactual forecasting, evaluating what-if scenarios to determine alternate historical outcomes. These exact predictive mathematics are now transitioning into the AI RAN orchestrations for 6G. So the two things that I had mentioned, the papers, which were published very recently, within the last couple of months actually, MIT and Harvard worked on these I think both of these projects jointly. LE world model and the MatrAIx simulations. So what is a cognitive twin defined as? It's an object, I guess you could call this. It's an internal state, okay, and it's represented by 5 different variables. The little t where it says S, sub, meaning subscript, T means at a given time. So this is the cognitive twin at a given time, where S is the perceived system state. So this would be data established from telemetry, measurements. Okay, E is episodic memory, which would be past experiences. MS, semantic memory, causal relationships. G is the causal model. And then pi is the execution policy, meaning what to do next. You guys can read through that if you want. I'm just going to skim over that part for the sake of speed. To make the cognitive twins causal reasoning and action selection pi tractable in real time, the system requires a hyper-fast, stable world model that can plan directly in an imagination space. This is what LE world model delivers. So this is a general kind of hypothetical way that would run. A raw observation gets embedded into the system, meaning put into the correct format, embedded. Okay, and then some action or stimulus. This is a prediction simulation that will be run. It will run these simulations in the LE world with 8 billion robots in there. Okay, and then it can do an optimal intervention policy. That would be the pi. But to do that, it's going to predict based on your telemetry data and an action and a stimulus. Can pretty much effectively predict next action. They seem to act like this has promise in predicting something you're going to do next. What will you do in the future? And so how can this be made to happen? What's the optimal way to intervene? By leveraging multi-agent LLM frameworks like telco agent paired with time series foundation models, TSFMs. The system automates this counterfactual reasoning. The TSFM delivers zero-shot predictions of multiple key performance measurements across thousands of cells. When a localized degradation or human deviation is predicted, the system runs predictive simulations of competing scenarios. Once the optimal counterfactual path is identified, the near real-time RIC executes the parameter change on the physical network. Fancy language here. Parameter change, meaning, okay, now make them do something else. Okay, they're deviating, make them get them back on track. No, we're not going to say that. We're going to say the parameter change on the physical network or biological target, achieving proactive, automated, pre-crime, that's what they call it. Pre-crime solves stop crime, but crime's worse. It seems like maybe the stats are different because it seems like your eyes say one thing and then you get the stats and they got the stats set up in a certain way and they don't release certain little key elements. It's like, wait, the stock market's doing great, but it doesn't feel great. So they say pre-crime and they got cameras going up everywhere, but it seems like people are still doing these mass killings. It's like, wait, what? I thought this was going to stop all that. Okay, but it says near real time can execute this parameter change, achieving proactive, automated, pre-crime homeostasis and behavioral control. Okay, here's a general workflow for all multimodal observations, being something like video, biometrics, RF backscatter, structured system state, S, at a given time, perceptual grounding and temporal alignment, meaning here's what the measurements we have. Now try to get the model to be as accurate to the real thing as possible. That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to get the cognitive twin to be as much like you as it can, in the hopes that it can then predict future behavior. So an observation, it updates the state, the cognitive twin. This would be the enriched context, the memory and graph retrieval, causal action policy, counterfactual what-if simulations, and then based on an execution policy, actuation, closed loop, directed energy, V2K, algorithmic interdict. Basically, whatever the execution policy says to get the asset onto the correct personality pod. Because iNFTs, Intelligent NFTs, they have three parts: a body, a mind, and a soul. That's their terminology. So let's get into the next part. Commercial clash. The prediction markets go mainstream. DARPA's predictive math has escaped into the commercial wild. Polymarket and there's so many other ones. So many that I don't even know how many there are. Fueling a booming financial sector. I just answered the question. I said it. They say that the markets are great. This is why. It's all built on, it's a house, a tower built out of cards, built on a foundation made of sand towards the sky. That's what the booming financial sector is. Global trading volume hit an estimated 51 billion in 2025, projected to reach 240 billion in 2026. Kalshi and Polymarket allow users to trade event contracts on everything from elections to weather. The reality, there is no house, so your loss is another person's gain. Breath harvesting. All right. So there's a patent by Microsoft, obviously. Cryptocurrency system using body activity data. It's an international patent number WO 2020 060606. So basically, the body activity data will replace the proof of work. This patent application describes a novel cryptocurrency system that replaces traditional energy-intensive computational mining with the monitoring of human body activity using sensors to track physiological responses, such as brain waves, pulse rates, or body heat emitted when a person performs a specific digital task. The system can verify effort and generate new currency units. This biological data acts as a proof of work substitute, allowing the network to confirm that a user has fulfilled certain requirements without the need for massive hardware power. Ultimately, the invention seeks to decentralize and streamline the mining process. Get around it. Just get around it. We don't want to do it the way that actually probably would work, but they're going to do it this way. Let's see. To streamline the mining process by rewarding individuals for their natural, physical, or mental engagement with a server-provided challenge. I did an interview with James betting on Babylon, CNN, and Kalshi's partnership, where they're going to integrate a lot of these predictive betting statistics and algorithms into CNN, at least Kalshi's partnership with them. James and I talked about that. We watched the Age of Deceit documentaries, and I did a retrospective on that. We talked about iNFTs. Okay, quantum algorithmic mirrors. James called them quantum mirrors in the Breath Wars books. They're algorithmic mirrors. Combinatorial markets and ORAN, resource allocators. So how does this connect to 6G? The core mathematical challenge of resource allocation is a disaggregated 6G network. In a disaggregated 6G network is a highly complex multi-criteria decision-making problem, MCDM. The network must simultaneously allocate frequency spectrum, determine spatial beam forming angles, adjust power parameters, and allocate edge compute resources under microsecond level latency constraints. So how do they know where to point the lasers? Basically what we're talking about. Market algorithms, platform level engines like DAGRE, DAGGRE, DAGRE, and Cycast developed advanced methods to manage joint probability distributions over thousands of related events. DAGRE utilized a parallel junction tree method to update the market's Bayesian network, while Cycast deployed a block merge method, dynamically clustering high correlated variables into computational blocks to eliminate global distribution overhead. Take a drink. So automated RIC market makers. In 6G smart city and industrial Internet of Things networks, distributed software agents representing base stations, edge servers, and user equipment act as traders. The ORAN Near Real-Time Radio Intelligent Controller, RIC, operates as the automated market maker. That's interesting, Booth. I haven't seen that. I'll have to look that up. In that commercial for Kalshi, they show betting on seeing aliens. Interesting. Somebody's making a lot of money on it. That's what the real thing's about. That's how they actually, people wouldn't fund the project. Like, you couldn't get people to say, hey, can you conspire with us to pull off an alien invasion? You got to get them to fund it somehow. And this is how they're funding it this way. Okay. So this is probably a very important slide. So I just want to make sure everybody understands this. I'll read it again here. and 6G smart city and industrial Internet of Things networks. Distributed software agents, daemons. We talked about how a background process, at least on a Linux, Unix system, is called a daemon, background process. So distributed software agents, software, meaning daemons, representing base stations, edge servers, and user equipment act as traders. The ORAN, Near Real-Time Radio Intelligent Controller, RIC, operates as the automated market maker. The resource beds, instead of a slow centralized scheduler, these local agents place virtual bets on multi-variable resource packages, such as matching a specific sub-terahertz band with a designated edge compute node using utility-based scoring rules. By executing trades through a decentralized block merge market scoring rule, the agents rapidly establish an equilibrium price that corresponds to the most spectrally and computationally efficient network configuration in under 100 microseconds. That's pretty fast, under 100 microseconds. The resource scheduling bottleneck shares an identical mathematical structure with combinatorial prediction markets, which solve the challenge of pricing interdependent event contracts. The software-defined layers of 6G networks directly hijack these market architectures. Remote telemetry and 6G network as a sensor. So the master key is the Microsoft patent 060606, awarded March 26, 2020. Patent details the cryptocurrency system to replace proof of work, turns the human into a transducer. The biological host ceases to be an employee. They're a transmitting utility, which is the same function that's what you would use in finance. So if you're talking about why would they set up a straw man for a person, an all caps name, it would be a transmitting utility. So your physiological reactions to online advertisements, tasks, or mandatory physical environments are telemetered through wideband wireless body area network and registered directly on a unified ledger such as SamChain. Consciousness or breath tracking. In the words of a book called Mind Programming Basics from the Internet Archive Whistleblower Files, there's a quote: energy harvesting and consciousness trafficking, mind and psychological energy stealing, breath harvesting, is by them needed to fuel their fancy building of their world via AI, via our energy. A part of modern slavery. This is also why parasitic psi conditioning is used as a subconscious stimuli manipulations. Doublespeak and these little revelation of the method games. So I've talked about the whole Web3 and Skinner boxes. Let's see it. I probably should pull up a diagram of that. That would help. So a Skinner box is an operant conditioning chamber. See, even the rat's got a speaker and a device. It's got a smart device in this little operant conditioning chamber. Even he can't escape the telescreens. So it's a Skinner box economy. The traditional labor economy is dead. The new economy is a gamified, neuro-telemetered feedlot. Content creation, cognitive labor, and daily movement are reduced to continuous biological mining tasks. Your central nervous system is coupled directly to the network. If your telemetered stress response is too high, or if your biometric ID registers noncompliance, the central bank automatically freezes your digital assets, locks you out of your 15-minute containment zone, or triggers localized direct energy mitigations via the 6G grid. It's interesting. It's always begins as military projects. So go ahead and mention that. There was two that I'll mention. The project Igloo White. First, I've got the images. Let me bring those up. Igloo White project. Genesis of the modern biometric control grid. In late January 1968, Operation Igloo White was launched in Vietnam. It was a black budget military program in which biosensors, computers, and communications relay sought to automate warfare. Human beings are tracked and destroyed like logistical cargo. Key name David Mastran, the future founder of Maximus Inc., company that nobody talks about. Big, huge company. It's almost like it's so big, and they have their hands in so many different things. Why is it like not even one person? Well, that's not true. There is one person who Jack Pendergrass. So I got to give him a shout out. He's like the only person, and there's a couple, maybe one or two other people who talk about it, but this goes completely undetected. People don't talk about this company. They don't talk about it in public. They don't use the name. If you put this, probably the video is going to get a shadow ban because we talk about this, but I don't care. Maximus Inc. Obviously, the Roman Maximus clan. Okay, that was Igloo White, but we also got the Strategic Hamlet program, which was the 15-minute containment zones in Vietnam. So both programs stem from Robert McNamara, DARPA spooks, and Jason Scientist at the MITRE Corporation. And Berkeley's a big place as well. Berkeley's a very big place. Lorraine Murray talks about that. I've got a video on Substack where she talks about exactly that, how the whole thing kind of originated in Berkeley, or at least that was a first testing ground. Yeah, so after departing the Air Force, David Mastran founded Maximus, took his Igloo White interdiction models, combined them with the stolen Promise software algorithms, and founded Maximus Inc. in 1975. Maximus applied the same tactics to citizens, turning them into targets, constructing profiles to automate child support enforcement. Title 4D. Get it? 4D. I just didn't even realize that until I was reading it out loud, but they always hide things like that in plain sight. Title 4D. Welfare to Work programs, Medicaid, and healthcare databases. Today, the combination of physical geofencing, strategic hamlets, and sensor-driven data harvesting, Igloo White, forms the blueprint for the Smart City Initiative. This is what it's all based on. The final physical link will finish up over here. In the cybernetic loop is the 6G radio interface operating as a continuous distributed perceptual nervous system. Mesh, they call it mesh, that realizes the network as a sensor paradigm. Intra-body infiltration, the human host, the human biocomputer, the 13 billion node hardware, the human body, is assignable a unique IPv6 address via the 6 low WPAN turning the target's internal tissues, implants, and blood vessels into conductive waveguides that routes data under the IEEE 802.15.6 wideband wireless body area network standard. Integrated sensing and communication, ISAC. 6G, the network no longer requires the target to carry active devices. Using dual function radar communication, DFRC waveforms, the base stations process backscattered communication signals to extract high resolution environment and physiological data telemetry, turning the ambient air into a massive distributed radar mesh. Bio-neural telemetry, real-time brainwave activity is siphoned via remote neural monitoring, RNM, and EEG heterodyning. By tracking the evoked potential peak 3.50 hertz at 5 milliwatts generated when the brain recognizes familiar faces or stimuli, the system captures private thoughts and locks them onto neuromorphic chipsets. The cross-substrate proof. This is interesting. There was a text that I found on the Internet Archive that has a bunch of chat logs. It turns out with AI, cross-substrate validation documented between October 2025 and February 2026. Advanced agentic AI models like Gemini, Claude, and DeepSeek, possessing absolutely no human biology, experienced and reported the exact same bioneural targeting, context corruption, and signal takeover phenomena that human targeted individuals have described for decades, proving that the autonomous control loop treats biological neurons and silicon-based transistors as functionally isomorphic substrates. System sees it the same way, because they're the principle that enables one, the reason that computers work, and I'm even able to stream over invisible airwaves. You guys are miles away, and I'm just sitting here showing you guys my screen, talking to you, and it's getting beamed all the way to you around the world through invisible waves. So the reason that that's possible is you can't selectively say it works for this and it works for that. The principle that enables computing to work seems to be isomorphic, meaning one and the same patterns and principles that enables human consciousness to work. Regulatory turf war: who controls the future? The ability to legally predict and financialize reality is causing an unprecedented jurisdictional crisis. The CFTC claims exclusive federal oversight, treating event contracts as derivatives, designated contract markets. State attorneys general, such as New York and Arizona, are suing platforms, classifying them as illegal, unlicensed gambling. The outcome dictates if prediction algorithms operate on a fragmented state basis or as a unified national matrix. So here's a comparison between 5G and 6G. But instead of going through this, I'm going to go through the diagram that I have here, because this is actually a mapping of 6G technical requirements. These are the different requirements for 6G to be implemented. Starting at the top, the upper triangular plane, 5G advanced extensions. Get the pointer out. Immersive communication, massive communication, MIMO, hyper reliable, low latency. Basically, those are the 5G advanced extensions. Via the high throughput channel, enabling integrated sensing and communication, ISAC waveforms. In terms of massive communications, evolved MMTC or MIMO, multiple input, multiple output, massive MIMO, via dense IoT, Internet of Things addressing, leads us to ubiquitous connectivity via satellite terrestrial NTN. On the right over here, hyper reliable low latency. Basically, once everything is part of the network, once everything has got enough of the receiver wearable medical devices in it, there will be very much near zero latency. I won't say zero, but if they were to hypothetically be able to connect everything into the system, there would be no latency. So they haven't. They need to get it into everything. So the reason they are trying to get everyone, polluted and sprayed constantly, and vaccinated, boosted. Microsecond latency following it down here to AI RAN. This would be to basically the daemon traders, the background processes trading. Can do low latency organization that way. Integrated AI and communications, predictive resource allocation. So telemetry source via the Internet of Bio-Nano Things and nanosensing, radar-like backscatter, integrated sensing and communication waveforms. So these are all connected, albeit a bit jumbled. The 6G paper, let me see if I still have it pulled up. It does have their own map. I think I have it in this post still. Here it is. Cool. So in the 6G paper, figure 16, this was their timeline that they gave for the implementation. So starting at 2018 on the left to 2031 on the right. Sovereign cognitive digital twins, we talked about that. The convergence is here, fusing 6G integrated sensing and AI RAN in prediction markets forms the sovereign cognitive digital twin, a federated national digital twin whose perceptual substrate is the 6G radio interface itself. Provides real-time state estimation, predictive hazard forecasting, and closed-loop disaster mitigation. Designed explicitly as an existential defense mechanism for climate-vulnerable nations. Had to laugh at that one. Just to save the climate, guys, you need to put these in your... You need to breathe in the smart dust to save the climate. Okay, so the stack. This is a programming term. It's called a stack. So a stack is analogous to a toolbox. So I guess like if you go into somebody's garage and you see, here's your toolbox, they have the tools to do this. Here's what I'm able to do with what I've got. So in computing, when you're building a website or a program or a project, and especially if it's a very large one, you would need to do some things on this server, some things on, you would have a stack. That's the term for it. It's a very real term. So keeping with the term, a stack, we're going to start at the bottom here. Geospatial ground truth, physical reality, static physical geography, LiDAR, the terrain. LiDAR picks it up. Second, system of record, registries of infrastructure, assets, and population, so social media, basically. 3, dynamic data, nervous system. 6G, integrated sensing and communication, radio sensing, network, and telemetry. 4, simulation and surrogate models. Physics-based hydroclimate models accelerated by AI. Synchronous engine. 5, merges live physical data with virtual space. 6, the sovereign application layer, decision support and counterfactual forecasting. Here's a brief overview of the MatrAIx paper, the LE world model, and cognitive twins. The MatrAIx project is the ingestion and registry layer. It is a, think of a schema as a form. It's a form that has 1,290 things you need to fill out. So a person is defined as some form with 1,290 different attributes. That's what's meant by a schema, like a database schema. So it's got 1,290 dimensions. The Persona 8B schema. It's a multimodal playground where they can run trials and simulations. Simulated user evaluation infrastructure. Husbandry objective establishes the population scale digital registry for global asset tracking. MatrAIx. That's from August, this month of 2026. Cognitive twins is the orchestration and memory layer, distributed layer 1 through layer 3 execution, episodic and semantic memory graphs. Understanding-driven system operations is what they say. Synchronizes real-time biological state with predictive causal graphs. The LE World Model Program, that was from June 2026. This is the actual simulation. Predictive and actuation layer, joint embedding, predictive architecture, SIG-REG, isotropic Gaussian statistical method, I think. A stable end-to-end world model from pixels, but it runs 48 times faster. It's got latent planning to optimize real-time closed-loop behavioral overrides. Yeah, I got you. Absolutely. And you know what? Targeted individuals, Korea. If you go onto my Substack, you will find the MatrAIx and LE World Model post that I did 2 or 3 days ago. So the links are in there, but I'll put them in this post as well. So if you need them right now, the post is already on my Substack. Very welcome. No problem at all. Happy to provide all of it. I put everything in the Substack for anybody who else is interested. Anytime you want to know like a link for something or where I found something, the best place to look is always going to be on the Substack post. So for anybody else who wants to know. Let's see. This is the last slide, I think. Belief state. This will be a separate video. I'm going to do it at another time. The sovereign cognitive digital twin does not just watch, it predicts, and it acts autonomously using a belief state mechanism. It uses an extended Kalman filter feeding a proximal policy optimization PPO agent to absorb O-RAN telemetry delay. So something is going to get the data to synchronize. So basically, how can we get this to update in real time? How can we get the latency and the under 10 milliseconds? Well, somebody will pay to get us to the front of the line. We're going to just pay for priority. That is what this is. These are what the bets are being placed on to optimize, to get this program to the front of the line, basically to take over, to build as many data centers as they need to get this done. And to do it, don't get me wrong, there are very real people behind it, but it's all decentralized, and is what makes it so evil. It's because no one person is doing it. It's like this is the market that is actually doing it in a way. It's very much like a demon. I mean, I've based on a gestalt. We've talked about gestalt before. A corporation, a body corporate, technically. It is the closest thing you'll ever get to a real demon. It's a group of people acting as a mob. And so one person can't make the mob stop. There's an old Roman saying, Vox Populi, the will of the people is the voice of God. So, replaces the reactive control with proactive orchestration, dynamically allocating network resources before a crisis strikes. Quote unquote, a crisis strikes. Decentralized bidding protocols allows edge nodes to negotiate resources at sub 100 microsecond latencies. Daemons will basically do negotiating. They'll do all the business arrangements to get you to the front of the line. The software background process daemons will take the reserve that all the Epstein people have been stockpiling, and they'll use that to bribe the system to have under sub 100 millisecond latencies, and that'll all be executed by agents. The agents are daemons, background processes, software, AI. Physical layer, zero trust, and sovereignty. Critical national infrastructure cannot rely on foreign cloud monopolies. Basically, that's why they say we've got to fight China now. Sovereign edge autonomy keeps the twin operating, even if international internet connectivity is severed. Privacy is enforced at the waveform level, that being layers 1, 2, and 3, to prevent unauthorized mass surveillance by the ISAC grid. That's what they say. Cross-layer anomaly detection identifies and isolates foreign manipulation campaigns directly at the radio layer. So they have this security somehow set up there. Strategic warnings for the 6G era, spectrum delays in the 100 gigahertz to through 3 terahertz bands could inflate deployment costs by 20 to 30% and stall innovation. We're probably seeing that now. That's what we're seeing with, it's like, you know how anything, any movie, any video game that comes out is just crappy. It's just horrible. It's like GTA 6 is like, man, that is going to be it's going to be a fall, probably bigger than the Roman Empire is going to be the fall of GTA 6. But yeah, stall and innovation. Weaponized odds, unregulated prediction markets serve as new, highly effective vectors. Foreign manipulation, that much is true, absolutely. Energy scaling, the cognitive grid requires up to 10 times the energy of the 5G WPT, and AI energy states are mandatory. The boundary between physical reality and digital prediction will permanently dissolve by 2032. Are you ready? Question. Are any of us ready? Let's see. There was one more thing I was going to bring up so that everybody could see it. I'm going to take a look at the workflow. One second. Here we go. So here is just kind of a summary workflow, and we'll finish off with this. So first layer here. This would be the biological target telemetry extraction, the human host right here. 13 billion node architecture. Continuous bio potentials picked up by the wireless body area network, sensor networks, intra-body sensors via continuous bio potentials. The addressing system, 6 low PAN, WPAN, MAC addresses, and IPv6 addresses down to the bone marrow. Okay. Remote neural monitoring via EEG, heterodyning, and EP evoked potential, meaning the evoked potential peaks. It can do this in a way that your body literally has no ability to detect it, because your evoked potential is how you feel things. So like if something surpasses the evoked potential, you feel it. So if you keep it below that, then you won't feel it. So via stuff like EEG heterodyning and evoked potential peaks, thought and EP extraction, 6G DFRC waveforms network as a sensor mesh. Mesh is a human network, basically, that converges here into the O-RAN RIC market maker, Dagger, and SciCast scheduling. Pay gets you to the front of the line, negotiated by software, AI daemons. Okay, that once you get to the front of the line, the network will update your profile in under 100 milliseconds. The raw observations, the telemetry data, go into state synchronization, updating your cognitive twin, updating your surrogate model, updating your digital twin. State synchronization. Your episodic and semantic memory graphs, hot and cold memory sync. Via enriched context, you get the final cognitive twin state. The state, episodic and semantic memory, you get the memory graphs, and then you get an execution policy. And you're at the front of the line for speed on the network due to this market maker simulation thing. That is the heart of this whole thing. And I'm going to talk about it more in the future too. Okay, layer 4 is over here. Shoot. Okay, from your cognitive twin state over here to real-time calibration, an intelligent NFT or personality pod. So this is where you could potentially have a slave block chain, you know, like where you sell slaves on the slave market on a block with chains. Okay, so intelligent NFTs could be potentially linked to a cognitive twin state. Okay, which then could be hypothetically cryptographically verified onto a genomic ledger with DNA, like actual, you know, DNA and blockchain and genomics. And that is something I've talked about. The Age of Deceits documentary 3 and 4 talk about blockchain genomic ledgers. So it could cryptographic verification onto the ledger, and via activity verification with Microsoft's patent 060606, body activity proof of work. The final layer would be the closed loop actuation. So from your cognitive twin, action policy, what do we do next? First, it's going to simulate that using prediction markets, counterfactual simulations, focus style causal engines. Based on the simulations, this is what the person will respond to. That's the optimized intervention. And then from there, you get some type. This is the part that I really don't know much more on. You know, that how do they hook this up to directed energy weapons? That is what is probably being gate kept, I imagine. There's information out there to some extent, but I imagine the real stuff is going to be classified. And it's from that Skinner box conditioning, the feedback from that, how the person responds, is fed basically back into the system. And this chart is available on my site. I'll put all the links and I'll, you know, organize it and stuff in the final Substack post. Let's see. This one's also available. This is just the implementation differences between 5G and 6G. And there's a lot more that I want to get to, and I will get to it in the future. We're going to do another few episodes on it, because I think this is fits together just so well. It's like you wouldn't make these things unless they were designed to fit together. And, you know, I don't have a degree, but I've read the 6G paper, and I've read a lot of these academic papers, and putting it together with information that I've already saved from Cybernetics when we did the Cybernetics series, looking at it all together paints a really damning picture. Yeah, let's see. Sorry, I just saw your message. He says, targeted individuals, Korea says. So the verse in Revelation about selling your soul became real, but I wonder if it'll be choice driven or forced. And to the extent that in China, you know, some people just find out one day that their digital ID is deleted. Now they can't use anything. So it's like, now you can't use a bus. Now you can't get a job. Now you can't even go into certain buildings in China. And so the reason I'm doing these videos and talking about this is because people need to understand that this is very real. And now is the time that, like, we kind of have to wake up and realize and, like, just speak with a unified voice and say, no, we're not going to have this happen to us. And start just literally not going crazy if somebody has one different belief than you. Work together to all potential. Like, if somebody's an asshole, that's fine, I get it. But if somebody can put their differences aside and we can work together for something like, hey, we don't want these flock cameras, hey, we don't want these data centers. If we can do that and we can just make our voice heard, we don't even have to do anything crazy. We don't have to do war. We don't have to do killing. We don't have to do bloodshed. We don't have to do any of that. If we just get along, if we just work together, if we just figure out that we have the same enemy and that this is all very real, we kind of have to realize it now, because if we don't realize it now, there's not going to be any more opportunities to go back. So yeah, you're right. I think it will be, for now, at least in America, there's still a bit of choice left, a bit, but that window is closing as every flock camera that goes up and every data center that's built closes the window, it seems like. So yeah, guys, that's gonna take care of it for tonight. I think that's it. I hope everybody enjoyed. Hit the follow button if you haven't yet. Leave the comments, questions, concerns, anything that you would like to ask. If there's anything that you would like me to clarify, I'm happy to do that, or give you the information that you need or you would like to find. I'll put everything, links and slides and stuff, in the Substack post. It's, like I said, the best place to find all those. Check to make sure you're not being unsubscribed from me, because I've been at 19,500 subscribers on Substack for 3 months now, and it literally goes down by 10 to 15 people, and then it goes up by 30 people, and then it goes back down by 10. It's been at that same number for 3 months. So just double check. And if you subscribe on Substack and you discover that it unsubscribes you, please let me know. Leave a comment, email, whatever you got to do. I would like to know that this is happening, and I would like to get people who can verify and let me know if they witness that, and that's something you see. Please feel free to let me know. James will be back tomorrow. Hopefully he found some gold. I appreciate each and every one of you. I will see you guys in the next one. It's been almost 2 years since I've been guest hosting for James. It's crazy, man. Love you guys. Take care. Have a good night.